What if I told you the only way to truly honor your past was to rip it apart? We hold on to old letters, childhood photos, and painful journals like they are holy relics. We think that they are our identity. But my guest today, Devorah Brinckerhoff, believes that sometimes these objects are actually cages. She does the unthinkable. She asks you to take your most precious, painful memories and physically destroy them to create art. If you are holding on to a box of memories that feels heavy, or if you're terrified of letting go of who you used to be because you don't know who you are without your story, do not go anywhere. We are about to learn the art of sacred destruction. Welcome back to Awaken Your Authentic Self. I'm your host, Jessica Rooks. This is the sacred space for soul-led seekers, spiritual empaths, and truth tellers who are done with the high-functioning trap and are ready to rise into their fullest expression. Each week, we strip away the layers of who the world told us to be so we can remember who we actually are. And today, we are stripping away those layers literally. My guest is a professional artist and transformational guide who made a radical shift. After 30 years as a successful gallery-represented artist, Devorah Brinckerhoff walked away from the traditional art world in 2019 because she realized the product was no longer feeding her soul. She developed a methodology called soul portraits, a healing process where she guides people to take the literal materials of their trauma, journals, photos, mementos, I've even seen wedding gowns, and reconstruct them into mixed media masterpieces. She teaches us that our creative expression is a direct pathway to truth, and that you don't need any artistic ability to heal. She is here to help us make the invisible visible. Devorah, welcome to the show. It is such an honor to have you here.
Thanks so much, Jessica. I'm happy to be here.
Well, Devorah, let's dive right in.
Sounds good.
You talk about ripping up journals, photos, and letters. That feels incredibly dangerous to the ego because we are taught that our memories are our identity. Can you walk us through the specific somatic or emotional experience of that first rip? What happens in the body when we physically destroy a piece of our history?
Well, I think a lot of different things happen, and I think it's very unique to whoever is doing the ripping. There are certain nervous systems that cannot allow that to happen, and there's a solution for that too. People don't have to rip up the original, they can rip up copies. The power of it is addressing the energy behind the experiences that are captured in the materials that I'm asking people to rip up. When people actually give themselves permission to do so or follow my lead and do it even when they're terrified or nervous or scared, usually they feel a lot of relief, empowerment, excitement, possibility. And I was going to say relief again.
Wow, I can feel the intensity of that release just hearing you describe it, though. And I know listeners are wondering, is this safe for me? So later in the episode, Devorah, I want to ask you about the specific 5-minute exercise for people who are too scared to rip anything apart yet. But first, let's talk about your pivot in 2019. You mentioned in 2019 that you walked away from the traditional gallery representation path because you no longer resonated with it. And that is a massive identity death, letting go of the successful professional artist label. was there a specific moment of grief or fear when you let that external validation go? And how did you know your inner voice was telling you the truth and not just self sabotage?
I was really excited. I think I had been building up to leaving the galleries probably for 5 years before I did. And it was just so happened to be in 2019 after a recent show that just felt empty. And the the typical pattern of being in your studio and painting for a show and having an opening and having a nice time, and then taking, like, seeing the work sell and not really knowing or having a relationship with the people who bought it or where it was going or why they resonated, other than that one night at the opening. If that's when I met the person who bought it, sometimes people come in after. In fact, it's very typical that people come in after and look at the work and engage with the work on their own. And then, so the sales are, I'm told that things sell, but I don't have a connection to the people who buy it.
Mm-hmm.
And my work is all about connection, and it has always been about connection. And I had started opening my studio to the public during a citywide studio tour several years earlier, and I had so much fun. So there were people who would come in and they'd either turn around and leave because the work didn't resonate with them, or they would stay for hours and we would talk about what it means to be creative, what the work sort of opened up or felt alive inside of them, how they were reintroduced to parts of themselves, what it made them think about, and really who they were in the world and what was important to them. And I love hearing about people's stories and what matters to them.
Right.
And so it was a no-brainer to do more of that and less of the typical gallery opening that was just more, I want to say hygienic, right? Like it was a bit sterile. Like, it's fun, and I loved the galleries and I loved the people working in them, and I personally don't have any hard feelings. But it just wasn't for me. And
Right.
so when I made the decision, I was so excited, and then I just followed it and it felt great.
Well, that's what we always say. It's that feeling that you feel right there in your solar plexus. If you feel sick behind it or you feel nervous or way too, maybe it's just not meant for you. But if you're getting a whole excitement level from it, that's usually your big yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Devorah, you also mentioned using this process to heal childhood trauma slowly and gently.
Yeah.
Often trauma work feels violent or urgent, like we need to exorcise the demon now, you know? How does the act of pasting and layering paper allow the nervous system to process trauma at a pace that talk therapy sometimes rushes past?
So I think the act of creativity in general is a very gentle way to address trauma that is stuck in our body. And I had used drawing and painting unknowingly as a release valve most of my childhood, young adulthood, and early um, part of my career, really without knowing that I was using it for the process rather than the product. It just so happened that the product could sell and did sell, but that wasn't the driving force of why I was making work. The deeper reason was that I was connecting with something true inside of me. And when my world really fell apart is when I started using materials from that time in my life to address what I couldn't articulate, what I didn't know how to share, what felt too shameful, all the stuff that was taboo, I could address on my own with myself. I had always used mixed media as a way to help me tell my story, but I had done it in an intuitive, unconscious way versus a very conscious, still intuitive, but very aware way.
Right.
Is how soul portraits came to be. And it changed the energy that was stuck in my body in an afternoon. And I knew I was onto something. And that I spent the next 5-10 years continually working on my own stuck energy and trauma and grief and loss. I was really moving around with a lot of grief and loss, and the level of grief felt like I had a gaping hole inside of me, and I just didn't know how to address it. And talk therapy only gets you so far because you're talking, you're still in your head, and you're not entering into that space where experiences happen in our body. They get recorded in our body. And so they needed to be addressed and spoken to in the language of the body. And creativity was that language for me.
I love that. And you know what's funny is listening to you just now, you just really triggered something in me that I kind of had forgotten about. I was an art minor when I was in college, and I didn't paint for a long time after I had gotten married. My first marriage was 21 years, and during the divorce, all of a sudden, I started painting again.
Wow.
And the paintings, it's like I can see them right now. They really were a representation of how I was feeling, you know, being stuck in a house, being stuck in a cage. And my art is very abstract.
Uh-huh.
But till you said that right now, I never put two and two together. That I
Yeah.
was probably intuitively doing exactly that. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really powerful. And I love that. What would happen, right? If we're doing that in an unconscious way, which is amazing in and of itself. But what happens when we add intention and awareness to a creative process, whatever it is, it unlocks your world. It's really, really neat.
I could imagine that. Oh my goodness. Yeah, imagine adding intention to that. I might have had a whole different masterpiece.
Yeah.
Now, you've said that you see the world visually rather than verbally.
Yes.
For the truth tellers listening who have told their story over and over in words, whether it be in therapy or in journaling, but they still feel stuck, why is the visual language of the soul able to unlock doors that language keeps locked?
When I think about talking and talk for me, when I am expressing through words, two things happen. One, I often stumble, like I find it difficult to come up with the right words, and it's easy for me to get stuck down rabbit holes of my mind. And two, if I'm talking to another person, there is a sort of side door pocket of expectation around wanting to be seen or understood by another in a very certain way. And that my desire to be understood gives away my power. It is about external validation to a degree, not always, right? But for me, and especially when it came to talking about things that I was very ashamed of, it mattered a great deal how that other person took that in, received it, received me, responded, judged, criticized, or accepted. And my well being was then tied to their response.
Right.
And so the visual language, or even just self witnessing and self sourcing, allowed me to practice knowing that my own understanding was enough, that my own response was all I needed, my own love, my own compassion, my own acceptance. And I stopped looking externally for belonging, for love, for really anything.
Validation.
Yeah, exactly. And started looking towards myself for all of that. And it just took the pressure off of other people to hold the burden of my well being. Like my well being is in my own hands. And literally, when I am making something with my hands, there is a different relationship to self, to spirit, to divinity. And that is the most important relationship that I can have, is the one that I have with myself, with my higher self, whatever you want to call it.
Absolutely. And what you were talking about is something that so many of us feel all the time, because I felt like you were speaking to my soul right now and past memories, because I remember all those feelings and needing to feel like being afraid to speak, like you said, just being afraid to speak sometimes. It's like, how are they gonna take this? How are they gonna accept us?
Yeah,
Without thinking, you know what? Maybe it's not about you. Maybe it's just about me.
right.
Maybe I just need to get these words out, and how you receive them is really on you.
Exactly. And we misunderstand that. Like it's a very fundamental misunderstanding that we have. If we find a soulmate, they're going to understand and accept every single piece of us. And I mean, there is an element of unconditional love that I think is possible. But we really need to start internally and unconditionally love and accept ourselves first if we ever want to call that in or be able to trust it from another.
Absolutely. Now, Devorah, you talk about capturing the essence of the soul rather than a likeness of the face. If we strip away our physical appearance, our job titles, and our trauma stories, when you see someone's soul essence emerge on the canvas, what does it usually look like? Is it chaotic? Is it peaceful? Or is it something else entirely?
Again, it's really unique to the person. So, the process itself, people send me their materials if I'm doing a commission, and I read through all of them. I feel the energy of everything. I ask questions to the person around beforehand. What is the overall desire for this process? What is it that you are ready to release? And so, if someone, the example that comes to mind is a gentleman had a lot of love in his life, but he felt so unloved and so unworthy. And when people hand me their materials, I often say, hand me what you think is ugly and unacceptable, and I will show you your beauty. I take their materials and I filter it through my own lens of love and acceptance. And the materials become the foundation of the painting. They tell the person's story for them. So there isn't any, you missed this, you didn't get that right, I forgot to add this, this is missing. It's just all there. And I really trust that the energy of whatever needs to be witnessed comes forward for me and I'm able to witness it, because that's all energy is ever asking for, is to be witnessed and accepted. In order to be released, those are absolutely essential. And that honors the past. There's an element where I write over the top, whether it's a poem or one of their favorite poems or something that strikes me about their material, and I find a poem that captures that, or I channel words or free write over areas of the painting. And then that anchors the present moment, who they are right now. And then the over image is all about calling in, now that they have released all this energy, who are they stepping into? Who is it that they are becoming? So that is the whole painting in a nutshell. And at times it can feel very chaotic. The painting part of it is pushing and pulling elements of our past into their proper timeline. It's about allowing aspects of ourselves that we want to honor, because every version of who we have been allowed us to become who we are. And none of it is bad. All of it is acceptable. All of it is forgivable, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everything is love. And so when people get their painting back, whether usually it's a channeled image. And as I get to that time of the painting, I'll be flooded with images that are connected to the energy of the piece and what's being released. And then over time, it dwindles down to about 2 to 5 images. And then once I start the piece, one image really makes itself known. And that's the one that I follow. And it's a dance. The rest of the painting is really a dance. And there are peeks into the material underneath and the writing underneath, but mostly it's the overimage that you see, and that overimage becomes like a talisman or a representation of the power that dwells within each and every one of us, the power and love of our lived experiences.
I love that. I like have goosebumps. I'm like thinking, what a gift that you are literally giving people. Like that is just so beautiful. And maybe it's because as an artist I can picture this, and I can picture that energy and what's the way it's channeling through you, but wow, you are what a beautiful spirit you have. And just to think that you add your own message for them to just show them the beauty of who they truly are underneath all of the conditioning and their lived experiences. Because honestly, I tell people all the time, our lived experiences are not meant to break us down. They are meant to build us up. If you view your life, every challenge as a test, I mean, be like me. I'm a nerd. I want to pass every test. So, oh my God, what a gift. How beautiful.
I love it. Like it makes me very, very, very happy. My favorite thing to do are the commissions. I do other things, right? I teach people how to do this process for themselves, and I do, yeah. And I have an online course that people can do too. But my favorite thing is doing the soul portraits for other people. I love it. I feel so privileged and honored to be let into somebody else's world at that level. It's really lovely.
I can imagine. Now, you're actually leading me into my next question because, like you
Huh.
said, you teach others to do this and you actually sell kits also. And you emphasize that process matters, not the product.
Yes.
But many of us are recovering perfectionists who are
Yes.
terrified of making something ugly.
Mhm.
When a client sits down with no artistic background and freezes up because they are judging the outcome before they've even started, what is the specific invitation that you give them to help them feel safe enough to just make a mess?
Well, I really talk about how the messiness of life is where all the beauty is. Like the tree that grows wonkily, the patch of, I don't know, there, like I can go down a million different examples of what I think is beautiful. Uh, Perfectionism is, it limits us,
It's
right?
overrated.
It's really overrated, and it really limits us. It makes us, it asks us to conform. And the freedom, like the unfurling, the like letting go of the shackles around the shoulds and the right and the wrong. We were taught that artwork had to look a certain way, but prior to that, when we made things as a 3 and 4 year old, we just loved it. Nobody judged us then. It
Right.
was like mud pies were delicious and ready to be eaten,
Everything went
and
on the fridge.
ev- everything, and hopefully, right? And and but even if it didn't, right? Because I remember, like in my household, we didn't do that, but I still loved it. I loved my drawings out of the lines until
Hmm.
I learned that it needed to be in the lines. And it's ridiculous, right? Like that joy of making is what I'm asking people to tap back into and to not worry so much about the outcome, the product. And even if they feel like it's ugly, which most people, when they let go of what it should look like any expectation of should, they really like, oh, you can see their shoulders lower, their the ease comes back in, and they're like, okay, I can have permission to quote unquote get it wrong, to make a mess, or to even create something that's ugly. Because, a lot of the experiences that we've survived are, quite frankly, very ugly experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Why should they look anything other than that? And why is ugly considered bad? I think ugly has its own beauty.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I want people to get much more comfortable with what they consider as ugly, because I just want to challenge that it's not. It's just another version of what is truly beautiful.
You brought me right back to my art teacher in college, because
Yeah.
I remember taking the class and she put a plant in front of us that of course had the different kind of leaves and the different textures, and said, I want everybody to paint this. And everybody's painting their realistic version of this. And I just couldn't do it. I
Yeah.
couldn't do it. And I remember just saying to her, it's going to be ugly. And she says, why? And I says, because I can't paint what I see. I see it differently. And she says, then paint it how you see it.
Beautiful.
And she gave me the permission to become an abstract painter. And my version was completely different than everyone else's, but it still hangs on my mother's wall to this day.
I love that so much. I'm so glad you had that experience. That's really powerful.
It really was. It was very freeing, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, does the process over product philosophy apply to the materials too? Because if I rip up a precious photo for the process and well, no, because you said that you can use copies of it. So you don't really waste the
Absolutely.
memory if you don't want to.
Well,
So,
and did the memory go away? Like, even if you rip up the photo, does the memory disappear?
right. So the act of ripping itself is just the healing version of it.
Yeah, it really depends, right? Like, it's a letting go, and it's a willingness to say that these experiences do not define me,
Right.
and I don't need them to prove anything, to prove belonging, or to prove love, or to prove relationship, or to prove worthiness. I don't need them to to yeah, like the experience doesn't disappear, but the relationship to it changes when we give ourselves permission to rip it up. And we are also identifying what that relationship was and what we want it to be. And that's the transformation, and that you're in charge of it. The ripping is really more of a reminder. It's a symbolic representation that you are in charge of your relationship with your past, with yourself, and with a future that you want.
That makes perfect sense. And I guess that really is the goal right there, because even when we do like Dark Night of the Soul healing on ourselves, the experience doesn't go away. It's your perception of actually what went down, how you view
Exactly.
it going forward. And you can view
Exactly.
it now from a healing perspective instead of looking at it from, oh my God, I'm a victim.
Right. Well, and we can use those materials of our life to prove worthiness, but we can also use them to prove failure, fault, uh, unworthiness, right? So when we're holding the materials and we have a story in our head about what they mean about us, we have a chance to really say, well, does it? Does it actually mean what I've assigned it to meaning this whole time? And so if I look at an old photograph of myself, and I grew up thinking that I was like terribly unattractive and overweight personally, and I look at those photos now and I'm like, wow, I was neither of those things. But that perception kept me from being able to eat in front of in public, in front of any of my friends for decades, and had such a toxic relationship with my own body, which of course makes so much sense in hindsight. But at the time, it was very complicated. Like my relationship with myself was so complicated, and appearance was so overvalued, and who I was underneath appearance, I never got to know because
Right.
I was so distracted by all this external, malarkey about what image means. And so ripping up those photographs, I both wanted to like cherish them because of the beauty I could then see. And ripping them up was more about ripping up the relationship or the perspective that I had, not the beauty that I was or that I am now, right? Like
Right.
so what does it mean, right? I'm in my mid 50s. What does it mean to have gray hair? What does it mean to welcome wrinkles? What does it mean to allow for skin to change and gravity to have have an impact on our system and
Gravity's my
to
bestie now.
and to yeah, exactly, and to embrace it as the roadmap of everything that we've walked. Like I'm so proud of it and so grateful to be alive,
Mhm.
that I find beauty in all of that, uh, and I really want to welcome it. I don't want to resist it.
That is so perfect. It's funny because you and my image, you said that, and I had the image of a picture they took of me when I was like 14 years old on the beach. And I hit my height of 5'8" when I was in sixth grade, but my body weight never kept up. So I was literally as thin as a rail. And
Uh-huh.
I ate like crazy, but the doctors were like my metabolism was just very high. So there's a picture of me standing on the beach next to one of the poles that was a marker with a number on it. And the
Uh-huh.
big joke for everybody was like, which is Jessica and which is the pole? And I remember after that never wanting to have my picture taken again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's terrible. And everybody else is like, oh, she's the envy of the world, right? Like my world would have wanted to be in your world. And the grass is always greener. And
Absolutely.
nobody knows what it's like to live inside of us. Only we do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, when the inner critic creates a narrative, because we all have that inner critic that says, I can't draw or this looks childish, is that actually a barrier to the art? Or is that exactly the voice that we're trying to catch and heal?
That's the voice that we just want to again welcome and say, is it true? Like, does it need, like, who says it needs to look differently than it looks? And the expectation of what it should look like is what traps us. And so I want to dissolve those expectations. What we make as children is so free and so wonderful. I went to art school, and I think a lot of people who gained skill in making things look a certain way, and that is valued internally, the freedom that we have as children and the wonkiness that kids make in their imagination is so, it's just blissful, right? It's joyful. It feels so good. And I remember, I don't know if it was Matisse or somebody else that said, we learn how to draw this way, and then we spend the rest of our lives trying to draw like we did naturally as children. And it always resonated with me. I'm like, yes, exactly that. And so if you haven't been trained out of it, then however you draw is exactly right. It's perfect and it's beautiful as is. It doesn't have to be any certain way. And yeah, so if people can let go of their expectations, then they can really enter joy.
So, has there ever been anyone who's made a soul portrait or gotten one or received one from you that they've considered to be like jarring or uncomfortable to look at, even though it's still like that perfect reflection of the soul? I mean, do we really confuse healing with being pretty?
I think a lot of us do, right? So far, no one has ever had a negative or even a jarring reaction to a soul portrait that I've created for someone. They they've been in awe of it, and I think deepened into it over time and have only loved it more and more. People will send me snapshots of their soul portrait hanging wherever it's hanging, and the sun hit it this way, or the at night with a lamp, or just on a gray day with natural light coming in. Like, people have a relationship with it, and it becomes its own, in my opinion. The soul portraits, the essence of us on canvas, becomes its own living, breathing entity, in my opinion, that
Right.
we then are in relationship with, that shows us, it reflects parts of ourselves back to us in a way that we are actually, I think, able to integrate more easily, because one, well, if I made it, they didn't make it. And so it's easier to receive, sometimes, to receive the love from somebody else than to receive it from ourselves. I would like to change that. But right now, that's so far been my experience when I've created soul portraits for another person. And you asked if they were jarred by it. I think that
Or even if they do their own, do you think that they, when they're done with it, they just look at it and go, oh,
I haven't, I've really, people have been so relieved. Like, one
perfect.
person came in and she thought she was going to feel really, really sad. And she felt really angry. And she was actually really excited about her anger because it felt more empowering than her sadness. And her painting was so sweet and childlike. And it was just, it was bright, and it was just so, it had a lot of energy to it, and she absolutely loves it. I haven't come across anybody who didn't like what they made, but sometimes they're afraid to say that they love it, which is totally understandable, right? Like, how dare we admit that we like what we made?
Right. But like
Right?
you said, it really could just be a reflection of the soul, and maybe not everybody's ready to see that reflection yet.
Yeah, I think when people are doing this process, it's very self selecting. So when people enter into it, they're ready. They're ready to see themselves. They're ready to invite love into their lives. They're ready for a shift. They're ready to become who they're meant to be.
I love that.
It's not, because there is a lot of resistance, right, to revisiting our past. We
Mm-hmm.
think we're going to find something terrible when we do. And that's, again, it's a story. That's the ego protecting us, but it's not, it's really not true. And so that resistance has a lot of anticipatory fear, but it's all anticipation. I've never had anybody say that they don't like it. I've had a lot of people say they love it and they want to burn it, or yeah, they're to continue it through the ceremony
Right.
of releasing.
I can see that. I can
Me too.
definitely see that. Just like writing something down that we're trying to release, with a full moon ritual, and then you take it and you burn it.
Yeah,
I can see that same process. Absolutely.
yeah.
Now, for someone listening right now, this is what we promised the listeners earlier, who has
Um,
a box of old letters under their bed that feels heavy with energy. What is the very first small step, a 5-minute exercise they can take today to shift that energy without picking up a paintbrush?
well, so if you're asking what they can do with that box itself, I would say take a deep breath, give yourself a hug, and open the box. Like, open the box. And every time there's a contraction, know that your higher self does not agree with the contraction that you're feeling. And that's what, that to me, that's what the contraction is about. It is an indicator that you have distorted your own self vision. And invite yourself to open up a letter through the eyes of who you are right now. And if it's a letter that you find upsetting, name what is upsetting and then rip it up and you can burn it after that. But in order to really be able to release the energy that exists within a letter, a photograph, a journal page, whatever it is, we must acknowledge what is there. And by acknowledging, it doesn't mean agreeing, it doesn't mean forgiving, it doesn't mean anything other than I see this. I am witnessing the message that I internalized from this time and place, and I no longer accept it. That's it. And whether or not you choose to make artwork out of it, or send it to me, or not send it to me, or throw it away, or whatever it is, like, you've started the process of actually acknowledging, so that when you do release it, it's gone, right? The acknowledgement and the release are tethered. The witnessing is essential.
That is perfect advice. That is beautiful. Thank you for that.
There's one other thing that I ask people to do, which are blind contour drawings. And that's a 5 second, I mean, literally it's 30 seconds where you look at yourself in a mirror and you draw what you see without taking your pencil off the page and without looking at the paper. And you give yourself 30 seconds to do it or less. And it's awesome. Like, it does not look like you. I will say that. And that's the whole point. And people usually love that exercise. And then I ask them to rip it up, and because they like it so much, they're horrified to let it go. And I'm like, you just did this in 30 seconds. You can do 900 more. And so it's just a way to get the creative juices going and the permission flowing, and that we are not our appearance. We're not our job. We're not our external relationships. We are something so much deeper inside of us.
That is beautiful. You make me want to pick up a pencil and try it right now. I know that whatever it is, I'll have a big smile on my face.
Exactly. You should. I will. If you do it, I want to know how it feels.
Definitely. I definitely will let you know. Now,
Cool.
I have one last question for you before I let you go. Since you shifted your focus in 2019, do you find that outside of this, that your own art has changed? Do you create differently now that you're guiding others compared to when you were just creating for galleries?
I do not, which I'm glad to say. What that tells me is that underneath it all, I was always painting and creating for myself first and foremost, that I was a pretty authentic creator, and I still am. So my own work really hasn't shifted very much at all. My work had one crazy hiatus when I was a new mother and my children were between the ages of newborn and 10 or a little bit older. And it was the most like whimsical, playful, feminine, colorful. My work is pretty colorful anyhow, but odd. I had never painted like that before or since. Like a lot of curvy women and high heels and purses and like lipstick, and just I have no idea where it came from. And for me, the irony is that those were some of the darkest, most challenging years of my life, and my children had a crisis, and that was really, really upsetting, and some serious trauma. And I was just in this juxtaposition of how do I express this darkness in a way that I can tolerate, in a way that I can get it out of my system that doesn't scare me.
Right.
So that was like the most popular work I'd ever painted. And it's really funny because I'm like, do you have that? And I think I have like 2 paintings left from that time. But people really like prints of that stuff because I just don't paint like that anymore. So
That
I
is
could.
so interesting.
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, it's weird. It has a life of its own. I'm always like for the ride. I follow it. It does not follow me. So
That
I
is
respect
that is the mind of a true creator. Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. Devorah, this conversation, it has shifted something in me today. You brought some memories forward also.
I'm so glad.
Thank you for showing us that destruction can be an act of love and that our messiest parts are actually the most beautiful materials that we have. Where can our listeners find you and start their own soul portrait journey?
I'm on Instagram and Facebook. My name, Devorah Brinckerhoff, or anything soulportrait.art is my website. And people can DM me or reach out to me any way that they like. I'm also on Pinterest. What else? I guess that's it. Uh, yeah, I'm so happy to be here and talk with you, Jessica. I had such a nice time. Thank you.
So did I, and I'm so grateful for you sharing energy with us. And listeners, I will make sure that all of her links are in the show's notes. And to you listening right now, I want to challenge you. Look at that one box or that one letter you've been afraid to open. Ask yourself, is this memory anchoring me to my past? Or is it fuel for my future? If you love this episode, please tag me and Devorah on Instagram. Let us know what layer you are ready to rip up today. And don't forget to subscribe to the show so you never miss a conversation that brings you closer to your truth. Until next time, keep rising, keep shedding, and stay authentic.